Hi, everybody. This is Bill Brunel. I'm your host this afternoon for a special conversation with Robert Fritz. It's a great honor to be doing this. Today's topic is very timely for all of us. It's called Creating in Times of Crisis. I'll just tell you real quickly, my background, Robert, has been for almost 20 years now. And I have professionally been a magician and a meditation instructor, and I've gotten to teach live the Creating Your Life courses when we used to do those, and now help out with the one online, and have helped coach people with it too. I want to introduce to you first today Ivan Fritz, who is Robert's son. Many of you know him. Ivan has grown up with the creative process in his bones, and is the head of technology and a video producer at Music Together. He's founder and president of Creator Tools, which developed the online version of Creating Your Life, and has all kinds of other talents and creative output. Ivan is going to give you a little brief introduction to how the flow and structure of the meeting will go, and then he's going to be behind the scenes taking your questions and sorting them out, and we'll be feeding them into Robert after Robert finishes with his presentation. So, hi, Ivan.
Hey, everybody. Thank you, Bill. Thanks for the introduction. Very kind. Just a couple of logistical things before we jump into today's topic. We have a large number of you who are on the line today, so we'll be very structured in the way that we handle our questions and answer period, which will happen after the initial presentation. Please use the chat/questions area that's in your GoToWebinar software to ask a question. I put some instructions there a little earlier. You should see them. And then when it comes time to the question and answer period, we will go ahead and either call on you or we'll read your question out loud, depending on your preference. So when you put your question in there, please just say, I would like to ask myself, or say, please ask for me, and we will do one of those two things. So let's talk about the goal of today's webinar, because I think it's very important to lay this out. We really would like for you to walk away from this discussion with a better idea as to how to handle the next few months, and with a new sense of future that helps you use this time to build a plan for your life during this crisis, but also after the crisis has passed. Now, of course, the reality that we're in is that we're in the middle of a global pandemic that's affected our daily lives in unprecedented ways. Many of us are stuck in our homes with orders to leave only for essential purposes. We're inundated with daily reports of infection numbers and death rates, along with increasingly dire economic news. And it may make it hard to be able to see the light at the end of the tunnel, and we may have a hard time focusing on anything else. So what are we going to do about it? Bill?
I'm going to introduce your father to tell us that. By the way, we've got over 200 attendees so far. This is wonderful. So Robert Fritz is the best-selling author of The Path of Least Resistance, which came out ages ago when he had taught some courses on teaching people how to make their lives the subject matter of the creative process. He put 80,000 people through those courses. He's an award-winning filmmaker, composer, and he's the founder of the field of structural dynamics, and he will be guiding us through today's discussion. So, Robert, we're turning it over to you.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. Let's just begin with something quite obvious. And step one is to acknowledge the situation we're in. And this is a pandemic. It is dangerous. And our primary goal is survival. In many ways, we're powerless to change the situation we're in. And it's good to understand this. It's not good to ignore reality. And we all know what the logistics are. Social distancing, physical isolation. This means avoiding physical contact with each other. You know, what I do, and I think it's a good policy, is just to imagine everybody's got it. Since we don't know whether a person has it or not, we don't, they might have it. And so why not act as if they do have it? And it's a simple idea. Stay away from trouble as much as you can. And of course, wash your hands, don't touch your face, use common sense, wear gloves and masks when you're in public. And there are some other things that may help as well. You know, get proper rest, drink lots of water, eat well, exercise, and so on. Well, that's the advice we're getting. And it's good advice. But there's so much more to this moment of crisis than just following this advice. There's you as a human being. And as a human being, you have instincts, impulses, reactions, fears, obsessions, stress, which can lead to a kind of disorientation and confusion. And some people will say things like, we'll get through this. And some of us will. And the reality is that some of us may not. And this is why we want to do everything we can do to survive. That's why we want to protect our loved ones as much as we can. One of the major insights of structural dynamics is this. The underlying structure of anything will determine its behavior. The underlying structure of anything will determine its behavior. And structure includes reality as it is, how we frame what we want, and the various concepts we may have. Those are all structural elements that combine together to give rise to a pattern of behavior. And as I wrote in The Path of Least Resistance, you don't put up wallpaper when the house is burning down. I mean, there is a time to understand that, you know, sometimes we are in a crisis. What is front and center right now? It is survival. Now, there's a couple of ways of thinking about survival. One is from a problem-oriented point of view. You know, you have a problem and you want to get rid of the problem. And so the major action you're taking is to get rid of something you don't want. Another way of looking at survival is as an outcome we want to create. And in the creative process, you're taking action to have something come into being, not simply take action to have something go away. In a way, the survival aspects are almost self-evident, but if all we do is obsess about survival, we'll lose ourselves. That structure, by the way, is called conflict manipulation. The reason you act is as a reaction to fear. And to maintain this stance, you need to obsess about your fear. You need to keep making it worse and worse and worse than it is, or at least to keep reminding yourself about how bad it is. I'm not saying it's wrong to have fear or to worry about the situation we're in and to have a healthy level of concern. That is simply a recognition of reality. Obsession is a different matter entirely. It doesn't come from a recognition of reality, but from a concept of reality. When we're in touch with reality, we evaluate actual risk. In conflict manipulation, we create a fiction about reality, making it worse than it is. And the point of doing that is to force yourself to react. And the underlying assumption you make is that you're in the structure, and if you were left to your own devices, you wouldn't do the right thing. Therefore, you need to put pressure on yourself because you're not to be trusted. And when you do that, you're stuck. You're in limbo. You're in a rut. And that makes matters worse because of the stress you're generating. And please get this distinction. Acknowledging reality is different than becoming fixated on an amplified distortion of reality, real risk rather than imaginary risk. Do you know what we can do when we're actually powerless? Nothing. But obsessing about it gives us the impression we can do something. That's why we obsess about it. It gives us a false idea. In reality, when we're powerless, we can't change the situation. Now, in the future, the situation will change. Science will find a way to overcome the virus, the world will recover. And it may be a long trip, but sometime in the future, the world will find its way. But unless we are the scientists who are directly working on cures, we have very little to do with that cycle. Knowing the cycle does not change the fact that right now, we are powerless to change the situation. And given that, we can ask ourselves, what is the best way we can use our time? So in conflict manipulation, all we can do is obsess. In the creative process, there are other possibilities. While we're waiting it out to support survival, we can use that time to create some other things we want to create. And yes, we're in limited circumstances, and there may be many things we can do at this point, even though there are many things that we can't do at this point. Let's back up from a time perspective. We're here right now. It may take weeks or months before things will change. Once things get somewhat back to normal, what will we have to show for that time? Can we use that time in favor of things that really matter to us? A better structure than conflict manipulation is structural tension. We have an idea of what we want to create. We're fluent in our current reality in relationship to this outcome. And from that, we can develop strategic actions to move from where we are to where we want to be. In fact, when Ivan laid out the program today, he began with what we want to accomplish and where we are. And of course, the actions we're taking is to have this discussion with each other. You know, there's so many wonderful things that can be created while we're waiting it out. Some of them might be developing skills. Good time to learn a new language, good time to learn a new piece of music, or learn how to play the ukulele. It's a good time to master your own creative process. Some people are painting rooms, rewiring computer setups, something I should do but haven't done yet. Learning new styles of cooking, writing poetry, writing songs, writing short stories, writing blogs. Some people are searching on the internet for the funniest jokes. I have been doing that one. And then sharing them with friends, reading books that were on your reading list for a long time. Create something and your world changes. Let's say that we are powerless to change the crisis we're facing, but we do have the power to create those things that are within our means, within our reach. And by the way, this is not trying to change your attitude. This is not positive thinking. This is a change of orientation from the circumstances being the primary driving force in your life to your choices being the primary driving force in your life. And for those of you who know my book, Your Life is Art, you know something about frames. There are three types of frames: the close-up, the medium shot, and the long shot. Now, I describe these frames as if there were camera angles. So in a camera angle, it's a close-up. If we back up the camera, it's a medium shot. And if we back up even further, it becomes what's called a long shot. And sometimes we frame our desires and our realities based on a close-up, a medium shot, and a long shot. Just like in photography, the medium shot gives us the best understanding of what we're looking at. We can see reality from the close-up frame, from the medium frame, and from the long shot. Close-up frame is appetites, instincts, impulses, things that mean or demand immediate gratification. That's why we saw people on the beach a couple of weeks ago. They were not thinking about what the future might become. They were completely in a close-up frame, appetites and impulses and instincts. No sense of consequences. If we back up, we get a different time frame. We begin to think about past, now, and the future. And the medium shot allows us to see shapes and patterns. And if we back up too far, what happens is we get a long shot. And in the long shot, things are too vague to organize around. You know, this is someday you're going to go to Tahiti and paint, or you're going to write the great American novel, or some general thing that perhaps you really want to do, but it's too vague to be able to create because it's too amorphous. Now, the best frame to see reality is the medium shot of overall shapes and patterns. How we frame our desires also has impact on our lives. The close-up frame is appetites and impulses. The medium shot is aspirations and values. And the long shot, as I said, is just too vague for us to know what we want to do. If we move to a medium shot, we frame our desires around aspirations and values. This is the best frame for our creative process. We begin to think in terms of what matters to us, how our actions lead to these outcomes. What we can see as an expression of this is many of the collective music videos that so many of us have seen recently. There's one that I posted on our Facebook page with studio singers from Nashville. And they joined together by phone to make the most incredible music. I mean, it's breathtaking. And that's only one example of many, many things that are like that. The best frame for structural tension is aspirations and values in relationship to overall shapes and patterns. You know what you want, and you understand what's going on in reality in relationship to that outcome. And you can see the overall shapes and patterns. Now, from that, you're able to develop strategic action steps that will then lead you from where you are to where you want to be. Tension seeks resolution. In structure, whenever we have a tension, it will strive for resolution. That's physics. Here are a few additional tips that might help. Don't spend too much time resenting how it is or how it got to be this way. A lot of people do that. Keyword here is to resent how it got to be that way. You know, it's like arguing with the wall. The wall is there. If you argue against the wall is still there. Resenting how it got to be this way is not being fluent in reality. Being fluent in reality is seeing how it is independent of how it got to be that way. Now, later, we can do an extensive analysis, which we should do. But right now, it is as it is. And my suggestion is that we become really fluent in exactly how it is. Next tip from me is don't spend too much time watching TV news. I mean, once or twice a day to get updates is good. Watching for hours on end will drive you to obsession. Here's something about creating. Pick easy goals at first, just to prime the pump. After a few easy creations, you'll be ready for more challenging goals. Create a new routine. Develop new habits. This will give you a sense of continuity. Be in touch with friends and families. Nowadays, the internet gives us such a chance to hang out at a safe distance. Have a sense of future. Now, this is not positive thinking. It's not like making up some pie in the sky idealistic future, but it's really having a sense of, if I take these actions and create one thing after another and create the goals I'm after the crisis is over, I will have both the capacity to create and there's probably some things I want to create. Put survival in the form of structural tension, rather than in the form of problem solving. If survival is the goal, we need to become fluent in current reality. And from that, the action steps we take to support that goal are not trade-offs, they're not compromises, but they're strategic secondary choices on behalf of the outcome we want to create, which is survival. You could use it as a problem-solving thing, and if you do that, you have to keep updating the obsession with the problem and the emotional conflict about the problem, because that becomes the motivation. As structural tension, the motivation is the outcome we want to create in relationship to the reality, even current reality as it changes. And it will change as we create more and more things. And the last thing I want to say is I'm so in awe of our healthcare workers, the folks that work in grocery stores, UPS and FedEx drivers, and the post office folks, police and firemen, and all the other people who support us. I mean, they are really the heroes. Every single day, they dedicate themselves to others. And I think when the history of this period is written, they will be recognized as our version of the greatest generation. So that's what I had to present today. And now we can open it up for discussion and questions, and hopefully we'll have a good interaction.
Okay, took me a second to get the camera back there. It was wonderful, Robert. Renee has a question she wants to ask you. And
just a moment, I'm working on unmuting Renee. Just a moment, Renee. Here you are.
Hi, Renee.
Okay. Hi, Robert. It's good to see you again. Thank you so much. I'm creating during this time a website, and I will go through times of, you know, immersing my time and being able to focus really, really well. But if I'm not immersing myself and I'm trying to do, you know, maybe 3 different things in that day, I find that I lose my focus on the website, and it's like I have to start all over again. So I'm trying to find a balance in my brain of how to do more than one thing in a day.
Okay, well, let's just take what you described and put that into current reality. So on the one hand, we have the website. On the other hand, we have your pattern. And your pattern is if you're doing too many things, you could get distracted or lose momentum. So what's the best time of day for you to work?
Say that again?
What's the best time of day for you to work?
Early morning. That's when I'm most creative.
So now we have the plan.
Now I what?
So now we have the plan. So this becomes really kind of easy. You know, you want to do other things in the day. Your best window for momentum and creativity is in the morning, and schedule that. So whatever you do in the morning, first thing you do work related is to work on the website, and then later do everything else. You know, a lot of writers do that. You know, they know their best time to write is in the morning. And so they'll get up and they'll actually schedule the time that they write. And then after they're through with it, and that becomes absolutely written in stone that they will write during that period of time. And once that's done, they'll go and do all the other things, knowing that the next morning they will go back to the workload, and that creates momentum.
Well, that makes a lot of sense because I do write, and when I write in the morning, I guess I just transfer that to the website. That'll be website writing time.
Good.
What can I ask you one last question?
Good.
Sometimes during this crisis,
it doesn't even have to be the last. Renee, it doesn't even have to be the last.
Oh, I'm sorry, you're cutting in and out, Robert. I didn't hear that. Oh, so
it doesn't even have to be the last question.
Oh, yes, last question. So my brain is also going in and out of fear and survival. I don't watch the news very much.
Yeah.
And my brain is like, normally the way I would create my website would be the structure that I exactly want. And now I'm double guessing myself, going, well, when we go back to the new normal or however business is going to be or what people want, am I going to be off target with what I just created?
And you're thinking that way because you're obsessing about the crisis?
I'm just going into fear. I think I'm just going into fear that we don't have a future. I know that's not correct, but it gets in my way of having my optimism that's required to do my work.
It doesn't require optimism. It requires resolve. And it's a different thing. I mean, you really want the result because you want the result, period. I would not try to think in terms of how, you know, maybe when this is all over, you'll decide to change the whole thing, or maybe it'll be just right, but you don't have to make that decision now. And so it is a bad habit and very self-indulgent to kind of slip into this speculative modality of, you know, the sky is falling. But do your work, and we'll see how it turns out.
Excellent. Thank you so much,
Make
Robert.
sense?
Yes, it does. Thank you so much.
All the best.
Thank you.
Good talking to you. Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye.
That's
Bye-bye.
wonderful. We got a number of questions queued up now. Igor is next.
And just a moment, Igor, and I will unmute you. There you are. Go ahead.
Okay, can you hear me okay? Hello?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Yep. Hi.
So my question is, I don't know if it is exactly related to frames that you mentioned, but it seems to be. So you said the medium frame is the most practical, and
Yeah.
I find, I mean, for the more like day-to-day decisions, even the more detail is needed, and that's where I get often confused because choices feel arbitrary. And this is somewhat related to, like, it's work related, and like the real goal that creates the tension, like structural tension that I feel, is not about is not connected to practical aspects. And then I'm like, okay, it has to connect. I have to find people, make money to offer the service to, but it all seems like arbitrary, a gamble, or just kind of like, then I lose that structural tension.
Yeah, because you're not clear about your goal. And what you said about your goal has to be this or that, it's simply not true. The only requirement for your goal is that you want it, period. And that doesn't mean it has any particular emotional impact. I was on, I do a monthly call with our students in Japan. So I was on last Saturday, and somebody was saying that he read a lot of books on the creative process and you're supposed to feel this emotional something or other. I said, throw away those books. You don't have to feel anything in particular. You just need to want it enough to create it. Now, you have certain goals that are more of interest to you than other goals, but the other goals you still want, like, for example, to have a professional life and to be able to make a living. There's nothing wrong with that goal, and you don't have to get too excited about it to still want it. And that does create structural tension because that's a different creation. It has its own current reality. It has its own action steps. I think you have the wrong standards of measurement. The standard of measurement is how close are you to creating those things that you want to create? And that should be the only standard of measurement. In your business, there may be a lot of details. That doesn't mean it's obsessive details. It just means that there's a lot of things to have to break down and take care of on behalf of the outcome you want to create. If you're really having structural tension, you're very clear about the outcome. Doesn't have to be a big deal, but you have to be clear enough about it to understand what it is. Be very clear about current reality, and then what are the action steps you need to take to move from where you are to where you want to be. So hopefully that's going to be helpful to you. And my major suggestion is change your standard of measurement about how it feels to what it is you actually want.
So if it's not an emotional measurement, then it's kind of more analytical.
Well, it's more actual. How close am I to creating what I want? What would be a better standard of measurement than that in the creative process?
I don't know. I guess I assumed that it's more emotional. And
no. You really should change your idea about that, because your emotions will change from good to bad to good to bad. Some days you feel like a nut, some days you don't. If you use your emotions as standard of measurement, you'll always be out of touch with reality. So don't use your use your
just to
emotions.
clarify, I guess, like the emotions, I meant like a desire, like a deeper desire that I cannot ignore. It's not like kind of flaky everyday emotions that can change from minute to minute. I'm talking about like really something
I
I've been wanting for years. So it's not, and
Yeah,
it's not changing.
that's
In
not an
many
emotion.
ways. Well, that is like
Igor,
in the
that's not
medium.
an.
Okay.
No,
So
no, but
that is a.
let me explain. Let me explain. It's not an emotion because it doesn't change on good days and bad days. If it were an emotion, it would change on good days and bad days. So it's something more substantial than an emotion. It's a real desire. It's something you truly want. Now, don't measure every creative process by those things that most matter to you. Other things also matter to you, and you can use the creative process and structural tension to also create those things, even though they don't have as the same level of importance as maybe this one does.
Okay. That helps. Thank you.
I hope you get this. I hope you get this because it'll really help you. And that's a very good question, and I appreciate it.
Thank you.
These questions that are coming in are wonderful, Robert. We've got quite a good lineup here, so just want to let you know that. So Ronald is next.
Okay.
We're unmuting Ronald.
Okay, I'm unmuting you, Ronald. You should be there now.
It's Happy Ron. How's it going?
Hey, Happy Ron, how are you?
Good to see you. Well, first, I want to say thank you for the positive regard you showed towards the grocery workers. I've been working at Costco for 38 years, and it's been quite an experience. And I'd like to share it with people. Just people talk about how it's all dog eat dog out there, and I've actually found my life as a cashier to be much easier because of all the positive goodwill that is being created. People are very appreciative, and it seems like there is a positive community that's being created in this situation that wasn't there as much. So I've actually enjoyed my job more than ever because of that. And I'm wondering, earlier you said that we can't change the situation because we're not doctors and professionals. And I'm wondering, how do you differentiate between that and saying that as artists, I'm a musician, we can actually change the situation by providing art that might provide some comfort, or we can't have an impact on the situation. We can't have an impact medically, of course, but we can have an impact on the situation.
Well, I mean, it's a little different. We're not impacting the actual crisis. We're not impacting the virus.
Right.
And what we are impacting, though, is sense of community and sharing with each other. And I mean, I love the story about your experience as a cashier. It's really wonderful. And I think one of the things the crisis has brought out is the best in people and the worst in people. And some of the best is really absolutely fantastic. I mean, we support each other. We want to be helpful. We want to acknowledge each other we have a newfound appreciation for the grocery store. We certainly have a newfound appreciation for our health workers.
Absolutely.
And really, God bless them. Yeah. By the way, I really loved your video, your songwriting video.
Oh, really? Which one?
That was great.
Which one were you talking about?
I only saw one.
Oh, okay.
You got interviewed by somebody about songwriting.
Oh, okay,
and,
great. Yeah,
you sent it to me, and I thought.
Yeah. Okay, great. Yeah, I'm glad you enjoyed it. Well, thank you for all your work. I've been studying it for more than 20 years, and you're still the person I recommend when people ask me about how to create. Now that I've become successful at doing it, and a large part of it's because due to your work. So thanks again.
Thank you. All the best.
All the best.
Okay, next is Joy, who will be unmuted momentarily.
Okay, Joy, you're unmuted.
Hi, thank you so much. My question is that I'm finding a fear come up around writing down the action steps for the structural tension, because the fear is that it'll limit creativity and intuition. And sometimes things flow and ebb, and who knows what thought might lead to the next, and this and that, and creating. And so I'm wondering if you can address that, because I see the logic in what you're presenting, but not how like that creative inspiration, intuition can play into that. Thank you.
Have you done it? Have you done it yet? Have you written down action steps?
Yes, I have.
And did that stop your spontaneity and intuition and creativity?
I stopped wanting to do it. I stopped wanting to do the steps. They started seeming just yicky. There was like a grit to them that made it no longer enjoyable. And I noticed some of them.
Maybe they were the wrong steps. Maybe they were the wrong steps. What were you creating? What was the actual creation you were making?
I was trying to create part of a business structure. So first I did something for an entire business, and then I was working on website. And each step, it just felt harder and harder to do it.
My experience, I'm just going to share my experience with you, and especially in places like filmmaking. I have, films are really complicated to make, and I definitely have to have a plan, like a schedule, like what we're going to shoot every day. And I have structural tension about what I need for each scene. But I also have the ability to see what's going on in reality. And if something in reality can be changed or made better than what I originally thought, that suddenly becomes part of the action plan. It doesn't limit my creativity. If anything, it focuses it. And by virtue of that focus, it allows me to then do other things. I'm going to describe to you what Helen Mirren said. And because she said this so beautifully about the creative process. She said there are two tracks. And one track, you actually know your lines, you know your moves, you know where you're going to walk, you know where you're going to look, you know where the camera is, you know all of those things. And simultaneously, at exactly the same time, the other track is anything can happen. And when you have both of those tracks going at the same time, that is such a complete creative process. So I don't know. What I would suggest to you is that you start smaller and create some creations where it's not so mechanical. Like a business strategy is very mechanical. It's kind of hard to improvise a business strategy. But if you like to both improvise and compose, then use the structural tension, create the action steps, and while you're taking those action steps, you might find ways that are different or expansive from the steps that you originally thought of.
And is there a way to know when you have the right action steps, or is there not a right to this in terms of being clear on what to put on?
There's a way.
There's a way.
Yeah, there's a way. You get the way is you get the result.
Then you know you put steps in. Thank you.
What more would you want? Listen, some action steps you like and some action steps you don't like. That's why it's a secondary choice to a primary choice. So secondary in support of what's primary.
Oh, thank you. That really helped.
Terrific. Best success, Joy.
Thank you.
Great. Okay, next will be Ryan, just momentarily.
Okay, Ryan, you're unmuted.
Hey, Robert. Good to see you talk again.
Hi, Ryan. How are you? Are you
I'm
still
good.
in Florida?
I'm still in Florida. Yeah.
Oh,
Good memory.
stay safe.
I will. I think we're going to be okay. We're out here in the country. So,
Okay.
the thing about frames is something I've always hoped I could get a little more distinctions on. You know, as you move from the medium shot at a 5-year timeline, 1-year timeline, you know, 1-week timeline, I don't know. Sometimes I feel like I lose my spot and where I am and what frame I should be looking at, and like what actions I should be tracking. And I don't know if that's making any sense, but you know, I kind of just I go in and out of these frames throughout the day and so forth. So yeah, so it sounds like you know what I mean.
I do, and I would recommend that you don't think about frames just because I've described them. Think about aspirations. Think about what is it you want to create, and where are you now in relationship to it, and what do you need to do to make it happen. So don't get so stuck in your head, if you don't mind me saying that, about the frames.
Fair enough. So I
Guilty
guess
as charged, Ron. Hey,
what's
Ron,
that?
guilty as
Very
charged.
much guilty as charged. Very, well,
Okay.
yeah. So I guess I mean when you think about your aspirations, do you think about it from like a weekly time frame, or do you think about it as monthly? Like, how are you framing your aspirations then as you go about getting things done? As you write in your books, you know, for me, it's easy to come up with plenty of things that I want and, you know, choices, but the actual maintaining that structure throughout the day and the weeks, I feel like I lose my place.
Okay, I never lose my place because I never think about it that way. I only think about what is the outcome I want, and the outcome itself will have a certain time frame. So, I mean, as a composer, I think about organizing events in time. Let me give you a really quick example. When I get off this call, I'm going to try this new recipe I just found on the internet.
Okay.
My time frame is by 7 o'clock.
Okay.
Now, that's a real structural tension, though. I mean, I've got my end result. I have current reality. I have the ingredients, as it turns out, and that's my time frame. Now, other other time frames are longer. I'm right now. I'm working on a documentary that has a time frame that is really 3 or 4 months in the making. It's not 3 or 4 months from now, but it will be 3 or 4 months by the time I'm through, and that's that time frame. So I never think about it from the standpoint of what's the right time frame. The outcome itself will dictate what is the right time frame.
Got it. Okay. That makes plenty of sense.
Terrific.
So I guess somewhat like joy, I think to myself, how do I know that it's going to take that long? I mean, a recipe for dinner is one thing, an online business is another. So
Well,
I guess I can put a stake in the ground and say that this thing's going to take that much time, but how do I know?
You don't know, and so you might as well give it your best guesstimate and then organize towards that. And then as you work towards it, current reality will be updated, and you'll have more information later than you have now, and you'll know whether or not that's the right time frame or not.
Copy that.
Cheers, man.
Thanks, Robert. Be well. Say hi to Rosalind.
I sure will.
Okay, Faik, I think is the way, I'm guessing the pronunciation I'm not sure of, so pardon me if I butchered your name, but Faik or Fake or something, F-A-I-K is next. And Robert, we've got about 5 minutes more for questions here.
Okay.
And Faik, you are unmuted. You'll have to unmute yourself in order to speak. Maybe we should move on. I will ask a question that was asked that we can ask for Joan. All the background of events that are going on all of the time, how do we filter that out to get a clear idea of our outcome?
I'm not quite understanding the question. Can you read it again?
Sure. with everything going on, all of the background of events that are happening all of the time, how do you filter out all that noise to get a clearer idea of what our outcome that we desire is?
Personally, I never filter out the noise. I just don't think about it. I mean, there's what's going on, which, I want to know about on the level of survival. And then there are other things in which current reality is related only to the outcome I want. And those other things are not relevant. So for me, it's never a matter of filtering things out. I'm not, and I think what you're describing though is a reaction to circumstances, reactive responsive orientation, rather than a generative creative orientation. Your choices, what we want to do is teach you how to have your choices become the dominant factor in your life, not the circumstances. You're kind of like describing a compensating strategy when circumstances are the dominant factor. I don't know if that's that helpful an answer, but I hope it does help to some degree.
Thank you. And Faik, you are next, and you are unmuted. Unfortunately, we still can't hear you, so we'll need to move on. Al, are you there? I'm going to go ahead and unmute you. And you are muted by yourself as well.
There's a
Can you hear me?
little, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yes.
Yes.
Hi,
Okay.
Robert.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, Robert. Hi, Robert. Thank you very much for what you are doing. And I have a question about how accepting the situation or resisting to it fits into defining the current situation. How it fits the part of the current situation, either accepting or resisting.
See, I don't think it's either accepting or resisting. I think it's understanding, acknowledging, becoming fluent in current reality. It is what it is. Look, here's how it goes. It is what it is, and we either see it or we don't see it. So
Yes.
the question is how much do we want to know what's going on? And my recommendation is to be fluent in reality. I wrote something that actually has become a phrase. Reality is not the enemy. I put that the other way. Reality is your friend. It's good to know what reality is. And so I hope you understand. It's not one or the other. Both of those are responses or reactions versus fluency, really knowing what reality is. How do we know what it is? Evidence. We just want to know the objective reality. Objective means reality is an object we can look at. Subjective means reality as it feels. So subjective reality is we're looking at our feelings. Objective reality is we're looking at the facts and how we understand what's true.
Yes. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. All the best.
Wonderful. So
I think we have time maybe for one more.
Oh, want to do one more?
Yeah.
Okay. Ivan, you got one?
I saw that Al was on the line. Can we get him back?
Al is unmuted. You can go ahead and speak, Al, if you're there. Otherwise, I do have a question I can ask. I'll go ahead and ask it. So this is from Janet. How do I spark inspiration for the work that I need to do? All I want to or choose to do is escapism, music, movies, reading. So I understand, I can definitely understand that feeling. So then it's a good question.
Yeah. Just understand that's part of current reality that you may have a habit, you may have fallen into a habit of escapism. Start small, create a number of things, get into the modality of the creative process, And when you set out to create something, make a point of creating it, no matter how you feel. And that way you'll create a certain rhythm, a certain pattern. Nothing wrong with escapism unless it becomes obsessive escapism, almost like doing drugs or something, where you're completely zonked out. So it's not so much sparking your inspiration. In fact, never look for inspiration. Instead, think about what is it you want to create it, no matter how you feel about it. Start small, build up, and you'll be building your creative muscle. I think that's the time we have for questions at this point, right?
Yeah. Good.
Okay.
So we're going to take just a few minutes to wrap up here. Did you have any concluding things you wanted to say, Robert, before we get into any logistics?
I'll come back. I'll come back later and say goodbye to folks.
Okay. So I wanted to just say a couple of things about this period in time in relationship to the Creating Your Life course. We don't really know, I don't really know how many people are online now that maybe have never been exposed to Robert before. And you heard us talking a lot of shop today. And it's wonderful the questions and Robert's responses today were so lasered and just terrific. So I just want to I'm hesitant because I know Ivan doesn't want to have a commercial be here, but I do want to say something about the Creating Your Life course. The Creating Your Life course is a 3-month course. It can be done in 3 months. Sometimes it takes people a little longer. It involves incremental lessons every day where you master the creative process. And it's a wonderful time. If today's discussion was either reminding you of workshops that you've done with Robert before, or if it's your first time, the material that's covered there starts from the ground up and then gives little exercises where you get the chance in 10-15 minutes every day to create something and get really in the water of creating versus putting all of your energy in problem solving and trying to make things go away or getting caught up in fear or escapism or whatever it is. So I encourage you, if anybody has any questions about that, they can feel free to write me. It's Bill Brunel. And I'll be happy if somebody wants to talk to me, I'll answer any questions about it. It's a wonderful course. My email is magic, MAGIC, and then F as in Frank, ORU as in university at AOL.com. That comes out as magic for you at AOL.com. MAGICFORU at AOL.com. And Ivan, you want to enter here and add anything on terms of logistics for this?
Hi, yeah, I'll just jump in to let you all know that we're kind of running a promotion right now. That if you use the coupon codes that you see on your screen, you can sign up for the course. You can either sign up for it as a subscription-based model where you just pay a monthly fee, and you can use the code CYL2020 for that. And just to let you know that every month we do have a conversation with Robert, very similar to this, a little bit less formal, where students from everywhere around the world and that are currently subscribed get together and we can discuss what's going on in the course and any other questions you might have. You can also use the coupon, the CYL Full 2020. That will give you 15% off the model when you pay for the course upfront. There's a 3-month right upfront option, and both are available at creatortools.net. So that's all I will say about that for right now. Also, this recording will be available to all of you who attended, and even those of you who just registered but didn't attend. You'll see the link for it in your email in about an hour or two. So thank you all.
Okay, Robert.
Well, I just want to thank everybody for being online, for coming to this chat, this discussion. And it is such an important thing right now. And the time that we have right now could be used so beautifully in relationship to our life building process. The thing about the course that Ivan and Bill were talking about is the video-based course. You do a lesson every day, a short lesson every day. There's over 100 videos in the course. And it's a progression to help you learn how to have your life itself be the subject matter of the creative process. Very powerful course after how many years has it been since I started doing this in the 1970s. Everything that we've learned about teaching people the creative process is in this course. It's not just the mechanics, it's also the orientation, the spirit, and the underlying structures that will enable you to master your own creative process. So I do invite you to look into that. We created it for a reason, and that was to enable, to share a good thing, really. That's what we're about. Just thank you so much for being on the call, and let me say goodbye. Goodbye.
Thanks,
Bye,
Robert.
everybody. Thank you all for attending today, and I hope to see you soon.